Some decide in incarnation, life will be fruitful, that the life will be fruitful, that you will amass great things, that you will amass great things, only to lose them, only to lose them. Learn hard lessons that you would run from, that others would run from. You choose these things according to the soul's needs, according to the soul's needs, for regression, for progression. So the idea of punishment, or retribution must be taken out of any idea, of ramification. The choices made by the small self, will always be in agreement, with the small self thinks he is, to what the small self thinks he is. Now the divine as you, in any encounter, can reclaim itself, through what it sees, the divine in purview, through what it sees, Any claim made in the name I am, has a ramification, The claim I am free, is an announcement of freedom, above and beyond even what you perceive freedom to be. The small self you see is not only bound in history, it is bound by the agreements made by those who came before you. It is bound by the agreements of those who came before you. When you codify this, by religion or law, by what you understand of as your science, whose need is to replicate itself, through the formulas of old, If you were to have a blank slate, of what things mean, you would have no meaning. You would have no meaning attached to anything. Every mathematical equation seeks confirmation by the evidence of the equation, You've built a world, and you have built a world around these equations, and you become accustomed to the ramifications of them. But what again happens if the slate is wiped clean, if there is no mathematical equation? If there is no mathematical equation, if the comprehension of a reality in experience move to the nameless, move to the nameless, the unfounded, the unfounded, the undecided, the undecided, the unclaimed, the unclaimed. What happens to anybody? When they step over the precipice? Beyond the known, where the reliance upon history, is actually disabled by the content of the immediate experience, the divine in the moment, the divine in the moment that meets you and claims you beyond articulation, beyond the known words, that you would try to hold, as a descriptor for what God could be, God can have no name. It is nameless. Any effigy, any totem, any ideal, that you claim as God, at the exclusion of another, puts you in alignment to a deity, at the cost of the true deity, which is all things, God in the rooster, God in the sunrise, and the sunset, and the breath of your body, and the exchange with the neighbor, they are all one. In experience, they are all God. They are all God in its own articulation, in its own quiet place, its own articulation, its own agreement to be known. Now, any choice you make, in alignment to the true self, calls you forth calls you forth, not to your personal glory, not to your personal glory, but to an awareness of glory, but to an awareness of glory. And understand the difference here, and understand the difference here. The small selves totems. The small selves totems, effigies, small gods, if you wish. Small gods, if you wish, can be named in a list, can be named in a list. My spiritual growth, my happy family, my happy family, my abundance, my career, and you seek these things, and you find a God, and you find a God that will confirm them, Or look at my God, look at my God gives me what? My God gives me everything I want, and you attach the meaning of God, and you attach the meaning of God to the things that you said you wanted, to the things that you said you wanted, the cost of what you do, at the cost of what might be given to you, beyond the known, through the true self, who will claim what is his, who will claim what is his by nature of his birth, the idealization of God as this or that, as God as this or that, limits God immediately in the crucible you will face, and the crucible you will face if you take this path. If you take this path, is the realization that God is both everything and nothing, that God is both everything and nothing. They can be the same. They can be the same because they must be the same, the Alpha and the Omega, all things at once. Now the complexity of any system, that seeks to bring you forth, is always predicated on the ability of the student to understand the complexity, although the teachings we bring you in sequence are all teachings. We have designed them with our own list, of things that may be known and claim, to give you an experiential way, of re-knowing the self, in consequence. Re-knowing the self in consequence means Re-knowing the self in consequence means that you are learning in consequence to the experiences that you are calling forth, to learn through. Now the small self choices will always be to go back to the inherited list, of what God should do for her, because she is loved by God. Because she is loved by God, and if she is loved by God, she will get what she damn well wants. And then you have a God, who is the parent, to an entitled child. There is a difference between deserving. And entitlement. The deserving one already knows what is hers. So it is claimed by her. Without question. The entitled one wants it handed to her. When she wants it, and according to what she's decided, it should look like. Paul is seeing the image of somebody sending back their dinner at a fine restaurant. I didn't order the lamb. Don't bring me the lamb. I will have the whole cow. In the expectation that the God in the kitchen will slaughter the cow, hand it to her, and she will be satisfied. She will never be satisfied. The one who orders the cow will be looking for a herd of them. In a fortnight. Because if you're looking to God, if you are looking to God to be the one who answers your prayers, as you have decided, they must be answered. We keep testing God. You will keep testing God to prove its ability, to give you what you need, to give you what you think you need. Underline the word think. Underline the word think. Again, the small self thinks. Again, the small self thinks, and the true self knows, and the true self knows, and the one who isn't deserving, and the one who is deserving of what she receives, understands that she has the right to it, understands that she has the right to receive it. There is really no question. There is really no question. You don't have the right to breathe the air. You know you have the right to breathe the air. It is an easy claim. It is an easy claim. You don't have the right to the sky. You know you have the right to the sky and to the life you are living, and to the life you are living on the conditions that you have decided a life can be lived. A life can be lived. You don't understand. You don't understand that the life that you're living, that the life you are living is a reflection of consciousness, the product of thought, and the equation that you are operating in, I will get what I deserve. I will get what I deserve is always an operation, because you're always getting what you deserve, because you are always getting what you deserve and have agreed to. Well, I didn't ask for this. Well, I didn't ask for this. Perhaps you did. Perhaps you did. Or perhaps you expected it. Or perhaps you expected it. Perhaps you needed it. Perhaps you needed to propel the soul to a higher octave, If you've always been in a chair, if you have always been sitting in the same chair, the reality of that chair may grow stale, and you may need to be moved or propelled from it to have a new experience, The small self demands the chair. The small self demands the chair. The true self demands it be propelled. The true self demands it be propelled forth, and it comes forth at the cost of the old, and the bed sores from the chair, will be revealed once you are standing, and then will be healed by its exposure to the air. Each of you decides what a life means, what a meaningful life. I got what I wanted. What a wonderful life. I was treated very well. Which immediately disavows the life of the beggar, who may be learning a very different lesson of entitlement than you have come with, The true self you see is as present in the beggar, as he is in the magistrate, and the magistrate is the one who has the opportunity, to support the beggar in a higher way, once he realizes that the beggar is no different than he is, but you don't want those lessons. Let somebody else be a beggar. That's their karma. I like my house. I like my wealth. I like getting my way. But don't tell anybody. It doesn't sound very spiritual. You come to these classes. In an expectation of realization, but you want your house to be realized. Along with you, and the faulty marriage, and the ungrateful son, Let's all go to the upper room. And lounge around the pool there. I hear it's quite lovely. Everything exists in the upper room. Everything exists in the upper room, and the reality of your being in the upper room. Need not exclude anything, but the true self But the true self is the one claiming there, is the one claiming there, because the small self is not the occupant, is not the occupant of the upper room, So the teaching of manifestation. So the teaching of manifestation is greatly altered once you move up an octave, Yes, indeed. Anything may be known and claimed. Anything may be known and claimed. But what you have been claiming in fear, or entitlement. Will be replaced instead by what is in agreement to you. Now the beggar can learn wealth. The magistrate may learn compassion. But the divine that is already present as either of them may be realized, lifted to the upper room, in an exemplary way, and once there, the lessons they require may be offered to them, without the calamity that may have ensued, in other ways. I don't understand. He says, I don't understand, he says, what calamity. Paul tends to be frightened. Of things that could happen, someday and when he's not excluded the upper room, and he does not exclude the upper room from a place of potential disaster, There is no disaster. There is no disaster in the upper room. The idea of disaster, actually doesn't exist there. It has been replaced by opportunity. It has been replaced by opportunity. Everything becomes an opportunity to realize God, an opportunity to realize God, in the face of change, the face of challenge, the way things need to be moved, for the soul's growth. Are comprehended as such, and not as punishment, or not as directives from a cruel God, wanting to teach you a hard lesson, wanting to teach you a hard lesson. Now the divine as you knows what it needs, If you see the gesture he makes, it's a broadcast. It is a broadcast, or expressing from the heart, that operates as a signal, to call back what is needed, Imagine a searchlight aboard a ship, on a dark night, It not only leads the ship forward, but it calls to the ship, what it needs itself, to move forward, and by nature of this light, or this broadcast, the ship is on course. Because it is always receiving its requirements. But what of love, he says? What of economic security? These are real needs we have. These are real needs we have in a physical life. We don't want to go live in a cave. We don't want to go live in a cave, or on a dark ship, looking for land in the middle of a storm. Who wants this? You're misunderstanding the teaching. You are misunderstanding the teaching in its entirety. If that's what you think we are teaching you, if that's what you think we are teaching you, we are teaching you that you receive what you need, and if that be love, the ability to receive it, must be comprehended by you, before it can be met, the one who knows she is worthy The one who knows she is worthy does not ask permission, does not ask permission. That is my plate. That is my plate at the table. At the table, I know it is my plate. I know it is my plate. You sit down at your plate. You sit down at your plate in the expectation the plate will be filled, that the plate will be filled. You're not yelling at the waiter. You are not yelling at the waiter to hurry up already, and kill that cow. And kill that cow. You know who you are. You know who you are and what you need. And what you need, the source of your supply. The source of your supply is always present because you are in God. Because you are in God. Because you've excluded nothing. Because you have excluded nothing from it. Well, this sounds impossible. I know I'm not there yet. How can they be there? How can they be? You're not listening, Paul. You're not listening, Paul. In the upper room. In the upper room. You're already there. You are already there. That is the teaching. That is the teaching of the upper room. Of the upper room. Your needs are met. Your needs are met because you're in a place. Because you are in a place to receive the need. To receive the need without request. Without request. Because you comprehend. Because you comprehend that the divine as you. That the divine as you in its expression. In its expression is doing the claiming. Is doing the claiming. Not the small self. Not the small self who doesn't believe in it was. Who doesn't believe he can have what he wants, will not get what he needs, will not get what he needs, will debase himself because he can't find what he wants, because he can't find what he wants, and go back down to the cellar, where at least he knows what he thinks he can have, what he thinks he can have can be met. You understand this? Do you understand this? Now, once you understand that being the divine self, does not exclude you from the vast experience of living will grow more comfortable. You will grow more comfortable in the economy of the upper room, What does that mean, the economy? I don't want economy. I want comfort. I want it now. The economy of the upper room. The economy of the upper room simply means you receive what you need. You receive what you need. Do you understand that? Do you understand that? Not what you think you should have, not what you think you should have. There is nothing wrong with wealth. There is nothing wrong with wealth. There is nothing wrong with poverty. There is nothing wrong with poverty. These are the equations of old. What we should strive for. Look at him. He must be very spiritual. He lives in a cave. I hear he eats nothing. I don't want to be that. Let's go back to the pool. We like it there. Another believes that the one with a fine house, is favored by God, God gives him what he wants. God gives him what he wants when his house burns down. And when his house burns down, you are secretly pleased. He didn't love him that much. Look what happened there. Which is why you tear down those you build up. You are looking for an equalizer. Of experience. The equalizer is the presence of God. Do you understand this? Do you understand this? The equalizer is the activation of the Christ, the divine spark, the seed of source, that is awaiting realization, to realize the divine, in the beggar is to know God. is to know God, to realize the beggar as equal to the magistrate, as equal to the magistrate is to know the magistrate, is to know the magistrate as God, and to align to the both of them, and to align to both of them from the upper room. From the upper room is to lift them to their own benediction, and realization of what may be claimed there, If you see his hands, he is calling things to him. He is calling things to him. The mudra of creation, the highest way, in the highest way that can be claimed, in the upper room. In the upper room, this is how the mudra of creation works. This is how the mudra of creation works. Every claim is high. Every claim is high because the claim is being met. In high octave, in the lower vibratory field. In the lower vibratory field, when you are claiming in this way, you are calling to you what is of like vibration, what is called in a low vibratory octave, reclaims itself through the trajectory of the choice. Do you understand the teaching? Do you understand the teaching? So the gift we offer you. In the upper room. In the upper room is realization. Realization is knowing. Realization is knowing. And you know what you need. And when you know what you need, that is what you claim. That is what you claim. You don't claim what you don't require. You don't claim what you don't require. You don't learn the lessons. You don't learn the lessons that are not necessary, You can learn the lesson. You can learn the lesson of the skier, on the slope, if it is a choice, but you don't require it, if it is not part of the life you live, if it is not part of the life you live. You may learn the lesson. You may learn the lesson of gifting others, with what you have achieved, the lesson of generosity, and that may be for you, but you may be the one who is here to learn, you may be here to learn the lesson, of reception, to be the one who is gifted, One is not better than the other. One is not better than the other. That is the old math. That we are wiping off the board. As long as you pray. To a God that has been outlined, by another. This is how God is. What he won't listen to. What he won't love. What she won't love, if you prefer. What she won't love, if you prefer. You are deciding a relationship to a being, developed through cultures and prescriptions that outline their needs at the time the God was created, Do you understand this? Do you understand this? Those who sacrificed others so that the crops would grow, created a God that required sacrifice, the ideology of sacrifice. The ideology of sacrifice has been passed down for thousands of years. Be it a lamb, be it a prophet, be it a martyr, It really matters not. It is the same emblemization. Of history, and a God that requires sacrifice. Now, what is required? He says, now what is required? You speak to us of sacrifice in some ways, releasing the ideas of who we are, is sacrifice, releasing the decisions we've made, born in fear, is sacrifice, we teach choice, and if you listen to everything we've said, said to you this morning, it has been about choice. It has been about choice and the mandate of choice, and the mandate of choice, even choosing how to pray, even choosing how to pray. The realization of God. The realization of God comes at great cost, Imagine you have a book. Imagine you have a book with one line of truth in it, with one line of truth in it. To find that line of truth, you may need to read the entire text. You may need to read the entire text and then learn that the one line of truth was the reason you read the whole thing, and then you have the opportunity, to release all the rest, and hold the seed of truth, so that it may grow within you, The Christ grows within you. The Christ grows within you. It comes to fruition as you. And it's sent. The flower of the Christ. The flower of the Christ is the emanation of the divine, the broadcast of the divine, that calls all things into being, And the claim, I have come, 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 I have come. It is not the small self. It is not the small self with his edicts, her fearful prayers, his old decisions, her own anger, that says, I am here, that says, I am here, I have come, I have come. It is the divine. It is the divine expressing as what you are, who has in some ways transcended, the lower articulation, the lower broadcast, the articulation of a small identity, The small identity is an idea, It exists on that blackboard. It exists on that blackboard with the other equations, It is not wrong. It is not wrong. It is not a problem. It is not a problem. It is simply not who you are. It is simply not who you are in a higher way, And to lift to the upper room, where all things may be known anew, requires the small self, in a compassionate way, to be readdressed, rearticulated as of God, We will complete this lecture. When we are prepared. We have spoken for some time. We wish to give the man in the chair a rest. Thank you for your presence. Period.